local audience as well as our entire worldwide listening audience. I hope everybody's doing great today. Don't forget, those of you who are listening locally, you can also join us on the World Wide Web. So you go to my website, which is AskDrFerguson.com. Right in the center of the page, you'll see a link that says Live Radio. Click on that, and then when you get to the website, to the YouTube site, you'll have a little house in the top left-hand corner. You click on the house, and then you click on Feed, and you'll be able to watch our program live as well as here. So for those of you who are computer literate and would like to do more than just hear us on the radio, because we're coming to you live from the radio out of Hosky, North Carolina, and I'm at the Down East Nursing Home where I'm seeing patients. So we got a lot of different connections going on here, but technology has allowed us to be able to do that.
Yes, indeed.
So I just want to welcome local audience as well as our international audience on the World Wide Web. And I would just thank you for all of you who join us each week on the web as well as join us locally and enjoy the programming. I haven't got much comments yet from the World Wide Web, but I do still get a lot of feedback locally, and people are still enjoying the program and telling me they enjoy the tips they receive and that they utilize those tips.
Wonderful.
So I think we need to keep on moving forward with that, and I see a lot of people are joining me even as we speak on the World Wide Web. There's a little counter in the bottom that shows you how many people are joining you, and we're getting more and more people joining us each week.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I know that you give your website, but on your website, is there an email that those can respond to as well?
Yeah, under comments, I think I haven't actually looked at where actual person can respond, but under contact us, I think it's a contact page.
Okay.
Under contact us on the web page, there's the email address where you can get to us, and I think there's also the office number where you can call the office and make appointments to see us. And again, that office number is 252-332-6484. You can call, and we're happy to see new patients at any time, and whether it be preventive health or Alzheimer's disease or just family practice, we're happy to see you.
All right.
And that number is also on the web page. And on the web page, just as you're mentioning it, it has a lot of nutritional things that you can do for preventive health, a lot of supplements that one can do for weight loss, weight management, exercise, things like that. A lot of things that can be very helpful. And it's got on the link page, I got a lot of nice links too, linking it to some other nice sites that can give you some additional preventive health things.
All right.
So those are some resources that our listening audience, both locally and internationally, can partake of. So last week we started talking about the Mediterranean diet, and we had been talking about fat diets and protein, carbohydrates, starches over the programs previous to that, trying to give some understanding to that whole concept. The whole goal behind this programming is to give you some preventive healthcare tips that you can utilize right now. Not that you have to go do any additional information, but you can utilize them right now. But I always emphasize you need to check with your healthcare provider to make sure that you're doing things correctly. Because sometimes, you may catch a little something what I say, but you may get it a little backwards or maybe miss one of the important ingredients. So always check with your healthcare provider, and be a student of learning throughout your entire life. Continue to read, continue to check natural sources, preventive healthcare sources. And sometimes your healthcare provider may not be up on the latest thing from a natural point of view, just as I may not be. And so it's always good to check more than one source and to look up the things that we're talking about and see does it fit you, because everything doesn't fit everybody.
Right.
And that's important. There are some generalities that do fit everybody, such as water. Everybody has to have water. Men are 65% water, women are 55% water. So water does fit everybody, but then we got some buts in there. You could have a problem with your kidneys. You could have a problem with your heart. You could have a problem with congestive heart failure. So in those settings, you might have to taper the amount of water you're taking in. Again, that takes you back to your healthcare provider so that they can help you decide what's the right amount of water for you. Just roughly, as we're mentioning water, as we get into our Mediterranean diet again today, roughly as we mention water, how much water should you drink in a day's time? Well, if your kidney and heart are working fine, you're not having any problems with fluid balance, then you need about the amount of water you weigh in kilograms, if that were your ideal body weight. So if you are a 150-pound female or male, and you divide that in half, that's about 75 kilograms. And that's not completely accurate because there's a 2.2 factor that you go from pounds to kilograms in there, but it's roughly divide your weight in pounds in half, and that'll give you the kilograms.
Okay.
So then you take that number of kilograms and you make that equal to ounces. And that will be how much water you should have on a daily basis to sit around and watch television. If you're out sweating and doing more, then clearly you need more water than that. So if you're a 150-pound person, and that's about your ideal body weight, you need about 75 ounces of water per day. Now 64 ounces is a half a gallon. So you can see that that's not a small amount, but it's a very conquerable amount of water to take in. And one of the keys in taking in more water when you haven't been doing it in the past is to go slow. You know, where maybe you weren't drinking much water at all in the past, so maybe now, say maybe drink a glass of water before your 3 meals a day. Then maybe a couple hours after your meals, drink another glass of water or 2. That right there will get you up to 6, 9, 12 glasses of water, depending on how many you put in and around your meals.
Now, is it correct to say that typically people would drink more water in the summer than winter, even though they need to drink the same amount all the time?
That is a very accurate statement. A lot of people drink more water in the summer. You know, they're hot, they're thirsty, they have this nice big glass of cold water. And your body needs water year-round. Your body is no different in the summer than it is in the winter. It still needs the water. For every cell in your body needs water. Your bloodstream needs water. You know, they heard the saying, life is in the blood. Well, your blood is 82% water. Even your bones, as hard as they are, they're 25% water. Your muscles, 75, 80% water. Your brain, 80% water. So your body is more water than it is anything else. And if you're not drinking water, you're out of balance. And it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Well, this is not a like category. This is a what you should do category.
All right.
And so people want to add things to the water. If you add maybe a little squirt of lemon or something like that, I can handle that. But when you start adding the additives that come in these little packets and things like that, then you're changing that water, and you're no longer getting that great product that you want to get from the water. Then people say, what water is the right water? Well, I couldn't sit here and tell you which water is the right water, but most city water is actually pretty good because it has to go through certain filters. But one of the problems is sometimes they put chlorine in it, and sometimes they also put fluoride in it. So having a filter at your sink level or your shower level is always a good thing to do.
Okay.
And a reverse osmolality filter are the best ones. I don't have any particular brands for you, but that's kind of a word you can look for if you're going to try to get a filter. Filters can pull that chlorine out, and see, they have to put chlorine in the water to kill the bacteria.
All right.
Because we don't want to get sick from the bacteria that could be in the water. So they have to put chlorine in there. And then if you're in a city place, then they're going to put fluoride in there because kids under 12 need fluoride to help their teeth. After 12, you don't need that fluoride, so it's not a real product that you need. So if you've got kids around the house, then you might want to be cautious with your filter. I don't know if there's a filter you can find that leaves the fluoride in or not. You can still get rid of the chloride, but to keep the fluoride. And if you find your skin is getting dried out a lot from your water, one, you can turn the heat down on your water and use it as cool as you can take it. But two, getting a filter on that shower or bathtub might pull some of that chlorine out, which might be what's also drying your skin out.
Okay.
And then you want to, put some kind of lotion, moisturizer cream on when you get out the shower, get out the tub, so that you can replenish your skin. Your skin is the biggest organ in your body. People kind of many times ignore that organ. You know you got a heart, you got a liver, you got kidneys, and people think of those organs as being real important. And then they forget about the skin being the biggest organ in the body is also very important. And so we need to protect that skin. We need to keep it well hydrated. We need to keep it moisturized. We need to give it the right amount of water it needs. We need to give it the right amount of nutrients that it needs. All of those things become very, very important. So again, just kind of a brief trail we went on water there. But water is the most important part of your diet. If you look into the Bible, when it talks about Jesus coming out the wilderness, it says he was hungry. It didn't say anything about him being thirsty.
That's what a lot of people miss, Dr. Ferguson.
Yeah, they missed that. They missed that when he came out the wilderness. It didn't say he was thirsty. It said he was hungry. And so why was he not thirsty? Because he had to have been drinking water. Water sustains life. They say life is in the blood. Blood is 82% water. So had he not been drinking water, because he was on earth as man, so he did things as man, he received things as man, he wasn't on earth as God, so had he not been drinking water, he wouldn't have made it that 40 days. And so because he's an example for us in everything he did, that was one of his examples showing you that you had to have that water. And water was very important. It's the most important part of your diet is water. So those of you that don't like water, get past that. You need the water. Now, is bottled water better than the water out of your tap? Not necessarily. If you really want to know, then you can look online and find some type of testing center that will test your water and see what actually is in your water and compare it to maybe your tap water, maybe a bottled water, maybe the city water, and do a comparison if you're really that interested. But for the most part, most of the waters are probably going to be okay. The distilled water will be the one category I would suggest to you. You don't want to do distilled water unless you're fasting or unless you're trying to boil something or clean something off, or you got to put it in your iron that requires distilled water. Distilled meaning you've taken all the impurities out of it. You've boiled any bacteria away. You've killed any product that's in it. So it's nothing. It's just water. There's no nutrients in it. And that has its place. But its place would be in a person that's fasting, maybe to help clean your body out by pulling some of the impurities out, by drinking distilled water. But that's about the only time I would really recommend a person take distilled water is if they were fasting. And a lot of your appliances around your house that require water, a lot of times they're asking for a distilled water, and that would be a good thing for them. You know, your iron will probably last longer if you use distilled water on it, so it won't get clogged down with all the impurities that are in regular water. Although regular water will clearly work, it will probably, over time, your iron gets clogged up with the things that are in the water.
Yes, it will.
So let's get to our topic of the day, which is we're talking about the Mediterranean diet. We started talking about that last week, and I thought it was a good transition from what we talked about in some of the previous times, where we talked about carbohydrates, we talked about fats, we talked about proteins, we talked about some fat diets a little bit. And those of you who didn't catch those lectures, you can go to my YouTube, youtube.com/user/AskDrFerguson, and you can look down the list and you can find some of those previously recorded programs. And you'll easily be able to identify them because they'll be about 30 minutes long. Most of the other YouTubes on my site are probably anywhere between 2 and 5 minutes long. So you shouldn't have any problems identifying it, the ones that we did live on the radio. Some of the earlier ones we were having problems with the technology, and the internet service was not fast enough. So if you experience where you go there and the words are not matching with my mouth, then you might just want to listen as opposed to look at it. Because I know personally I get kind of frustrated when I'm trying to watch a Chinese movie and the mouths are not moving with the words.
I think we all do.
And so we don't want you to have that experience when you go to my website. So if it's one of the earlier ones, some of I think the later ones, it's a pretty good connection between my words and what you see on screen. But some of the earlier ones, there was a big disconnect. And if you find that to be the case, then just listen, because the information will still be good even though the words in my mouth are not connecting. So, talking about the Mediterranean diet, we started talking about that last week. We first described, if you take a pyramid, put a pyramid down, draw it on the paper, or put it in your mind, and we're looking at the Mediterranean diet in the form of a pyramid. That kind of just helps you figure out how much of what part of it you should take in. The Mediterranean diet is probably one of the most researched diets in the world. I don't know if it's the most, but it's got a lot of research associated with it, with heart disease, coronary artery disease, memory, Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot of studies done in relationship to the Mediterranean diet. The Blue Zone was a group of scientists from around the world, got together, studied the oldest populations in the world, and they found several characteristics of those oldest populations. And one of those characteristics is they all ate similar to the Mediterranean diet. And in that particular group of people that they studied, the 5 oldest populations in the world, Alzheimer's disease and chronic disease was almost non-existent. And the average age was 98. So you can see that there's definitely something to eating like the Mediterranean diet. Now, granted, there were other components that these communities had in common. One of those other components was they had a friendship network. That was very important. They ate like the Mediterranean diet. They all had some type of form of exercise they did on a daily basis. And I forget what the fourth most common characteristic was for that group, but those were three of them. But back to the Mediterranean diet. At the top of the pyramid, you have red meat and sweets, and that's just a few times a month. Then next on the pyramid, you have eggs. Below there, you'll have chicken. And right now, down towards the middle of the pyramid, you'll have things like fish. Now, the eggs and the chicken, those were a few times a week. And then when you get to fish, and you know, fish should alternate with chicken, then we're kind of at the middle of the pyramid, so that's maybe 5 to 7 times a week. And then drop beneath the fish, you have cheese and yogurt. That's on a daily basis as part of the Mediterranean diet. Underneath cheese and yogurt is olive oil. Olive oil is a major part of the Mediterranean diet, and it's used for salad dressing, it's used for greasing the pan, it's used for cooking with, it's used for seasoning the food. And extra virgin olive oil will be the one I recommend, but it's used in so many different categories. So that's a great product to have in your shelf at home and to utilize it in many, many different ways. And when you look at the Bible, you'll see the oil they talk about is usually going to be olive oil.
That is correct.
Canola oil is also a good oil. Those are both monounsaturated oils. Then the next best oils will be your polyunsaturated oils, and those are going to be your vegetable oils. And then lastly, you have the saturated oils, and that's going to be your animal products. When you get saturated fats, those come from animals. The plants, and they don't have the saturated fats. They have the polyunsaturated fats. And the saturated fats are the ones you don't want. Those are the ones you get from your meats. That's why chicken, fish, and turkey are your best meats. Baked, broiled, steamed, or grilled, not fried. So, back to the Mediterranean diet. On the pyramid, we're looking at the pyramid. And when you look at the pyramid, we went from sweets and meats at the top, very few times a month, then eggs and chicken, a few times a week, then fish, 5, 7 times a week, then yogurt and cheese. They use a lot of times they'll do that as a snack, and that's just about every day. Then you have olive oil is also on a daily basis. Now we're near the bottom of the pyramid. We're one rim up from the bottom, and that will be your fruits and your vegetables and your nuts and your grains, your lentils. That's near the bottom of the pyramid. The several servings a day, several servings of those a day would be the way to go. And then last, at the bottom of the pyramid, you have your starches. You have your kukos. You have your dark nutty breads. You have your pastas. Those are the things that you find at the bottom of the pyramid, and those are all done several times a day. And people say, well, I'm trying to lose weight, and I don't want to do the breads. Well, balance is what you want. You really don't want to be out of balance. You really want your carbohydrates, your fats, and your proteins. You want them to be in balance. And when you take things out of balance, then you get into the fat diets. And when you get into the fat diets, you're often going to have problems. You're often going to have not what you're really after. So we want to try to stay away from the fat diets. Again, those of you who are listening to us locally, you can always join us live on the on the internet at youtube.com/user/AskDrFerguson. That top left-hand corner, you'll see a little house. Click on that, and then you get a feed, and then you'll have us live. And the other way you can go is you can go by AskDrFerguson.com website. In the middle of the page, you'll see a little icon that says Live Radio. Click on that. That'll take you to the same place on YouTube. Click on the little house, top left-hand corner, and then click on Feed, and you'll be catching us live. Again, I like to welcome those that are joining us internationally on the internet. We do appreciate you coming and sharing each week with us. And those of you who are local, I think, are starting to join us more on the internet as well. So back to the Mediterranean diet. If you look at the Bible, and I use the Bible as my resource, I use it as a foundational thing by which to build everything. And if you look to the Bible in Genesis 1:29, up to that point, that's when God, had just finished creating man. That's when he told them what to eat. At that time, they were eating grains and nuts and things like that. But then after the flood, God introduced meat into the diet. And so you have people talking about being vegetarians, and I guess there's probably nothing wrong being a vegetarian, but that's not the example of the Bible. So I choose to follow the example of the Bible. And they were not vegetarians after the flood. Before the flood, they were vegetarians. But God, in His infinite wisdom, must have had a reason for putting meat into the diet after the flood, and I'm going to take them up as You know, God doesn't do anything for no reason.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to take him up on that point. So let's talk about a few of the components of the Mediterranean diet. We talked about olive oil, and we talked about how important that is to replace your fats, your oils, your butters, your margarines. Use it as salad dressing, use it in cooking. All of those things become very, very important in the Mediterranean diet, and doing that on a daily basis becomes very important. Now, breads, a lot of times when people are trying to lose weight, they try to avoid the breads. Now, you do want to avoid the white bread. You want to get the nutty, the crusty, the darker breads. And why do you want to avoid the white bread? Because the white bread has been bleached. Most of your foods that are very white, they've been bleached. And many times we pick up the label, it will say bleached wheat flour, bleached oat flour, or whatever kind of flour, it will say bleached. And then it will say fortified. So what they did when they bleached it, they took out nutrients, and then they fortified it so they thought they could put back the nutrients that they took out. But one of the things they also took out was the color, which wasn't so appealing to the eyes. Well, I would wager to say to you, now, those of you who listen regularly have clearly heard me say that before, that we can never make it as good as God made it in the first place.
Right.
So if you really have and want the best nutrients, then I would suggest that you not toy with it and not bleach it, but take it the way God made it. And having said that, I have to qualify that because of the society in which we live, nutrients today are not the same as nutrients were 100 or 200 years ago. We have pesticides, we have pollutants in the air, so you're not getting the same meal that your great-grandmother might have gotten. But the key is to know that you're trying to get the nutrients in such a way. What happens when the farmers are farming? Well, they plant a crop, and that crop is going to pull some nutrients from the ground. It's going to get some vitamins, minerals. It's going to pull from the ground, and then it's going to become part of that plant. Well, if you keep putting the same plant in the same area, eventually you're going to deplete that land of those nutrients. And so then what you have to do, you have to put fertilizer in and put the nutrients back in. That's why you use fertilizer, to put the nutrients back in. And another way of doing it is to do rotation crop planting. One year you grow peanuts in that crop, another time you grow corn, another time you grow cotton. So you're changing the crop because each crop is going to take different nutrients from the soil. And so that would be a reason to know that what you get is not the same as what your great-grandmother might be eating, but it's still important in all that getting to get an understanding and to continuously educate yourself on what you're getting when you're taking your food in. Am I making sense, Bishop?
Oh, makes a lot of sense. I was thinking when we were talking about the crop, I can remember growing up working on the farm and how the farmers would change. Each year they would plant their peanuts in a different location, the corn and whatnot.
Okay. So you experienced the rotation.
I didn't know why, but now I understand.
Even though you didn't know why they did it, now you have a better understanding of why they did it. Rotating crops can help the nutrients stay strong in the different products that you're eating. But that also, as a side note here, that also brings us to the topic of supplementation. This is why supplementation is so important. You know, some scientists, some docs would say to you that if you got a good diet, you're eating right, you don't need any supplements. Well, I would say I'm in 100% disagreement with that. Because regardless of how good you perceive your diet to be, whether you've grown all organic foods and things like that, you're going to be missing something. And what you're missing, I don't know what you're missing. And you don't know what you're missing. So what's the best thing to do? Is to replenish all of those different items, and those you don't need, your body will put out either in your urine or put out in your stool. So replenishing those areas, I think, becomes very, very important to replenish in life. I know we're moving along here, so that we don't get to the end, and I forget to tell you, you can always reach me in my office at 252-332-6484. You can go by my website at askdrferguson.com. You can go by YouTube at youtube.com/user/AskDrFerguson. You can find lots of things we have on the internet if you just go to the Google search window and type in Stephen Ferguson, and then you can type in Stephen Ferguson, MD. You can type in Dr. Stephen Ferguson. And many times the first 3 or 4 or 5 pages you come up to, well, most of the things will be something associated with me. So lots of information online that you can find and get to. And then you'll also, those of you who have a challenge with substance abuse, primarily just opioids at this time, The same company is coming out with a drug that will help with cocaine and also help with alcohol, but right now it's just opioids. So if you're having a problem with substance abuse, you could also type in that on the internet and you can find me as well. Somebody that deals with Suboxone. If you put the Suboxone in the search category, you put down your zip code, and you'll be right on me in my office where you can then make an appointment to come in and see us. So back to the Mediterranean diet. Carbohydrates, a big part of the Mediterranean diet. Carbohydrates are one of your major macronutrients for good health. And there are three major groups of carbs. You got the sugars, you got the starches, you got the cellulose or the fiber. So what do those three different ones mean? Maybe we'll talk about that. That might be as far as we get today, and we'll pick up somewhere else next time. But what do those three mean? You got the sugars, simple sugars, you got complex sugars, and you got starches. Well, starches are your complex sugars. Starch is the way I like to describe it to help people understand what it is. It's a long chain of sugars joined together. And the best way I can give this analogy is if you think about going to church or going to a concert or at some coliseum somewhere, you notice how the chairs are joined together, and they have them at the bottom of where your seat is. They got a little hook that joins the chairs together. Right. You keep them aligned, keep them straight, keep them from everybody moving them all around where they want them to be. Well, just like those chairs are joined together, sugars join together to make up a starch. And then once it gets in your body, enzymes work on that long chain starch and break it back down into sugars. But it breaks it down slowly so that your body, over a period of time, gets those sugars into your system. Now, every part in your body needs sugar. Your brain lives on sugar. About 80% of your nutrients come from your brain come from sugar. So sugar is very important. You know, people hear about sugar, then they talk about diabetes. People hear about fat and sweets, and then they talk about cholesterol. People hear about high blood pressure, and they talk about the salt shaker. Well, all of those things play a part, but the most important thing in life is that you have a balance with all of those things. So when you talk about carbohydrates, three categories. You got the simple sugars, you got the starches, and then you have the cellulose, the fiber. And the cellulose, the fiber, that's that hard part on the cell. That's the part that gets stuck on your teeth and the string beans. That's that part that's hard to chew. That would be your cellulose or your fiber. And one of the advantages of high fiber is it helps you digest your food over a longer period of time, and consequently you can be engaged in that process of eating and just, well, let's see, how do I describe it? So what happens is when you eat the starch, when you eat that bread, you eat the potato, corn, something like that, which can be a starch as well as a vegetable. When you eat that, it gets into your body slowly so that your body benefits from the nutrients over time. Where say you eat a candy bar, well, now you got simple sugars, and that goes into your body right away. And so you don't get a lot of benefit over time. You get an initial jolt, and then a lot of times you're going to go from a jolt to back to a low. You might even go lower than where you started out because of that reason.
We're down to about a minute and a half.
Okay. Well, we're coming to a close today, but always remember water. We talked about starting the program. One of the most important nutrients you should take in. You need about your weight in kilograms, in ounces per day of water. A 150-pound person, you need about 75 ounces of water a day, a little more than half a gallon. Mediterranean diet has multiple different components to it. One of the components is little red meat and sweets, eggs and poultry, maybe 2, 3, or 4 times a week. Eggs, maybe 2 to 4 or 5 times a week. Fish, maybe every day. Cheese and yogurt every day. Olive oil every day. Fruit and vegetables every day. And last, at the bottom of the food pyramid, you're going to have a list of ingredients that you should take multiple ones every day. And that's the grains and the rices and things like that. And just lastly, before I forget, also on my website, if you go to frequently asked questions, you can find an outline of the Mediterranean diet, which is what we've been talking about today.
Heidi.
All right, so on that note, locally, I'm going to say be blessed, and to our entire listening audience worldwide, be blessed and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye now.